Well, vaqueros, season 4 is finally upon us, and with this update we did get some pretty big changes. Most notably was that we got 50 extra HP, which means we now have 300 total health, just like we did in Warzone 1's the end of the life cycle. So that is pretty cool if you can hit your shots. And of course, with this update we also got some major weapon balancing, at least in terms of the shotguns. But for today's video, I'm going to focus on one shotgun in particular, and that is the Expedite 12. Why? Because I think out of all the shotguns, it got the best glow up out of all of them. So I will have another video covering all the other shotgun changes in general, and I'll have that very soon. But for this one, I just want to focus on the Expedite because, like I said, it got a pretty decent buff. So let's go ahead and see what changed in the patch notes. Now, if we take a look at the patch notes, you'll see it has a minimum damage added, which basically means minimum armor damage added. They basically took out the armor term as they stated above in the patch notes, and then also they increased the leg multiplier, so that's kind of nice. Now, that doesn't really sound like much, and the Expedite 12 has always been sort of the weird stepchild of the shotgun category, and really this update did in fact help it quite a bit in some ways. It's still pretty difficult to use, but one of the things I want to point out about this thing first is that no, the Expedite 12 does not two-shot kill at all anymore. They actually don't with Dragon's Breath at all either, which is kind of sad. So that two-shot is just gone. Unless you use slugs, you're not going to get a two-shot with the Expedite 12. So that's kind of sad. But the really great thing about this and how they added that minimum armor damage is now the 3-shot kill with this gun is absurd. And when I mean absurd, I mean it literally goes from 0 meters to the point where you can get hit markers with this thing. You can get a 3-shot kill in that range. That's right, a 3-shot kill from basically the start of its damage ranges to the end. Where the pellets disappear, it can 3-shot kill. It's absurd, and that basically extends out to about 24 meters. So you're looking at 3-shot kills out to 24 meters, and man, that is ridiculous. This was not possible before the update, of course, and you were only getting 3 shots out to about 10 meters. So that's a crazy buff. I mean, that's really, really good. Of course, to get that 3-shot kill in game, it's a bit harder than you might think because this thing is pretty awkward and a lot of people aren't just standing still, so you're gonna have people jumping around and moving. So getting a 3-shot kill can be challenging, but it is entirely possible. I promise you guys it's possible, and it's incredibly satisfying when you do hit it. Now I'm gonna hop into the gunsmith and show you guys the build that I've been using with pretty decent success. So this is the build that I've been using for the Expedite 12 to get those nasty 3 shots. Of course, the Bryson choke is probably the most important thing because you really want to have that tighter pellet spread to make your 3 shots as consistent as possible. We don't need a barrel. Now for the laser, you can kind of swap this out if you want and use the 7mm or the 7mm canted laser, that one of the VOK. It doesn't really matter. I just like a little bit of a better hip fire with this one for up close engagements, and there's my tuning for that. Again, don't get obsessed with it. Then another important one is the resonance stock collapse. This is going to give us that great aim down sight speed and movement speed and hipfire recoil control. The Expedite elbow is also important. And for this last one, you can swap this one if you want. I have a recoil reducing grip, but you can use the Schlager Void grip if you want a little bit faster. I just like a tiny bit of recoil control because it is a little wild. Now, one thing to note about this thing, like I said, the recoil is an issue. If you're spamming this thing, it's really hard, as you can tell from that visual recoil. It's just really, really hard to kind of just spam and hit your shots well. So the way that I found to play this the best is to play it like a pump action, where you shoot, you go into cover, shoot, get your other shot off, and then shoot your next target. You know, basically just kind of pacing your shots, because really this is not a spam shotgun. I mean, you can kind of control the recoil and do it, but in my opinion, it's not going to work out for you, especially when this thing just gets all up in your face. There's muzzle smoke everywhere. The gun's jumping around. The iron sights are in your face. I just don't advise it. It's possible. That's just not how I would recommend it. I would say your best bet is, again, to take your time, line up your shots, hit them like that, just like a pump action. Now, the cherry on top is, of course, if you're very close to someone, you can get away with spamming them. But in most cases, you don't shoot fast enough with this gun like the KV broadside to get a nice, really fast kill. So unfortunately, in a lot of situations, you're really going to be in a bad spot up close and personal, like really close with this thing, because SMGs tend to be the way to go. And this thing, it's a little bit hard to control, and it's a little awkward with its 3-shot up close. As for my overall thoughts on this buff, I love it. I love what they did here. I love how they're going for, again, the sort of ranged shotgun build. That's really cool. Unfortunately, I think that the recoil, though, is still just a lot. It's obvious to me they don't want you to spam this thing, or at least they don't want you to kind of like treat it like it's a spam shotgun. This is definitely a different beast. And so the way I think to play it is definitely like it's sort of a hybrid pump action where you're kind of in and out of cover. hitting your shots and pacing them carefully. Don't just treat this like it's a KV broadside. You don't have the time to kill for that. This is not going to be like the go in, guns blazing, and just start spamming away. You can kind of get away with that, but I really don't advise it, especially when it comes to like trios and quads, or basically anything outside of solos and duos. It can be really hard to manage this since you only have 7 rounds, and the reload speed can be pretty bad since it's shell by shell unless you have fast hands. So this buff was much needed. Unfortunately, I really think that it's still kind of in this weird spot just because it's so hard to make it work. I'm getting better with this gun. It's always the shotgun I have the most trouble with because it's so awkward and quirky. But again, that playstyle I recommended you, that's probably the best way to get the most results with this thing. And just don't go too gung-ho and spam it like crazy. That's really not going to help much, especially if you're kind of pushing that range. But that pretty much covers it for the Expedite 12. That was a pretty awesome buff that we got, so I'm happy to see that. But now I want to know down below, what do you guys think of this buff to the Expedite 12? Are you as surprised as I am it got kind of that much of a 3-shot kill range? It's pretty absurd. Are you excited about the other shotgun changes we have? Do you like the new 50 health added to Warzone? And with all that being said, guys, I will see you in the next shotgun video.